Live from my drum room, please welcome the always smiling Jack Bruno.
Hi, Johnny D. Good
It was a long,
afternoon.
good afternoon, Jack. I'm sorry to keep you waiting.
I thought I got disconnected for a minute, but and then I thought maybe this was a Johnny D prank of some sort. It's like he sets me up, says we're gonna do this. We set up the sound and the video. He says, "Okay, I'll meet you back here at noon," and then never lets me on.
You're not the first person who thought I did that. It's just because I say I'm going to be just a few minutes intro and then I go for almost 10 minutes. But thanks for your patience.
No problem. Here we
Um,
are.
yeah, and I was just say part of my delay was, I've been doing this since April of 2020, coming up on 3 years, and I still can't friggin' figure out how to do all this, sharing and all the stuff I need to do. I need a producer is what I need. Somebody knows what
You
they're doing.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you got it down though. You're doing all right.
Well, thanks. It's so good to see you, man.
Almost in the flesh. It's been a while.
It's been a while, and I'm so happy that we've actually spoken on the phone a bunch of times in the last couple of weeks too, which is always a treat. And it's good to
Yeah,
see
I
you.
used to get to see you from time to time, but that all stopped. So
Yeah, I
you
know.
left and then COVID happened.
But we had some great times. I've been thinking a lot about those great times, and I've been thinking about all the different bands, artists I've seen you with in 30 something years, and it's pretty mind blowing, Jack. The career, the people you've played with, and people you've played with that I never got a chance to see you play with, um, but I want to say going back to the '90s with certainly with Tina Turner and Joe Cocker and the like.
I don't remember you coming to a Joe show. I know you've come to a couple of Tina shows when I was coming through, but
Well,
I
the
can't
last,
remember.
yeah, I can tell you the last time, and this will jog your memory. And the year was 2012. It was
Hmm.
10 years ago, and I know this because it was my last summer at Zildjian, and it was a double bill with Joe Cocker and Huey Lewis in the News.
Oh man,
Remember
those guys
that?
were so. Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
And
Yeah.
you and Bill Gibson came to
Oh
Zildjian one
yeah.
day. Yeah.
Yes, yes, we
Got a
did.
great
That was great.
picture.
And Gary.
And Gary Grimm and my buddy Rob Davenport, who's Bill's tech. And I'm going to show you this awesome picture I have of the day you came to Zildjian, and then I came to this. I think the show was that night, I think it was that night, and you killed it, man. It was. I think I'd seen you one time before that with Joe, but you're right. I'd seen you with Tina several times because my wife, of course, is a big Tina fan. So she'd be like, and
Yeah,
you'd
yeah,
always,
I remember.
yeah,
I remember seeing her there, but that Huey Lewis Joe Bill was just so much fun to do. Those guys are so that band is just smoking all the time, every night. You know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what a treat to hear you. In that band. I mean, with Tina, it was all those gigs were different. I was going to show you this other picture of another time that I saw you with. This is with Delbert McClinton, with Bonnie Raitt at the same venue at the outdoor on the water venue in Boston.
Was that Delbert?
I think it or was it. It was
I
Taj
don't think
Mahal. No, it was Taj Mahal.
it
Taj
was the
Mahal.
Phantom Blues Band with Taj. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's right. That's right. Okay. Yeah,
that
Ricky
that
Fataar, of course. Yeah.
that was another that was just the whole thing was just a blast. And then hearing Ricky Fataar all the time, man.
Yeah. Ricky's a
Well, the whole band.
monster. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. He's just got the most relaxed, in the pocket. It's just so right. You know,
Yeah. Well, speaking of relaxing in the pocket, I mean,
not
that's,
as relaxed as Ricky Fataar, that's for sure.
I don't know. Dave Maddox, by the way, sends his very best and his love and his regrets that he's not able to be here today. But he's just one guy that your name would invariably come up whenever we talk about, just, and I was about to say when I saw you on that particular night, I remember the tune "When the
Dave was
Night
there,
Comes."
was he not? Sorry
I
to
think
interrupt.
Dave was
Wasn't
there
Dave?
that night. I believe he
Yeah.
was. Yeah, that's right. Because he'd been living here at that time, had already moved here, and um, but just hearing you play those like kind of medium tempo, even, slow tempo tunes where that's what separates, if you'll excuse the expression, the men from the boys, when it comes to playing a groove. I mean, it's just like, it's just it's so deep when you play, and it's an inspiration. So I got to just tell you.
Well, thanks. Well, the slower tempos come easier these days,
Yeah, they do come easy, but they're not easy to play, I mean, like to really play.
Yeah, I can't reach maximum velocity anymore, or at least it's down a notch. That's for sure. Uh,
Oh, that's too funny. That's too funny. Well, I wanted to find that other picture too while we're chatting about this. There's a great picture
the Zildjian Day.
of the day that you guys came. Yeah, I had, and there's that great picture that I put part of it up. So I got a lot of Jack Bruno photos floating around here in my world. Let's see. This is another great one this is from Nashville in 2011.
That was a Zildjian Day
That's right.
when
Tom
when there
Grignon and
were those things. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. And no offense to Tom, because he's a handsome guy, but with you, me, and Harry in one photo, it's pretty devastatingly handsome, I got to say.
Yeah, it's like Mo, Larry, and Curly, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Oh, too funny. I want to just give a quick shout out too. I want to say hi to a friend of mine who you may or may not know, but Rich Farrago, who's watching, who says hello to us. And I want to thank Rich because I just got a notification that I'm receiving a bass drum beater from him, I think today. He has this company called Dynamic Bass Drum Beaters, and I'll hip you to them when we're done. And he makes this great product, and I guess I'm getting an early Christmas present from my pal Rich. So Rich, thank you. Uh,
I'm
cool.
not familiar with them, but yeah, send me a link or I'll just look them up.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. It's really cool. He's an engineer and he's designed this flex beater that's really cool. I use it all the time, and doesn't make me play any better, but it feels nice when I play, because you can't I could never play better, but it feels nice when you play it.
The shaft is flexible. That
Yeah, he's got this. I'll send you the link. You can read up on it.
okay.
It's a molded. Rich, forgive me if I give the wrong information, but it's it allows the thing to flex. Yeah, with this actually, well, I can't really get at one right now, but hello, Stephen Forresta from Nantasket Beach, right next door. All right.
A distant cousin. I think he's my second cousin,
Oh,
Stephen.
okay. How
Yeah.
about that? That
Hmm.
explains Nantasket Beach. I thought he knew that I was in Cohasset, but I guess he knows you, so that explains it.
Yeah, yeah. I had some family, well, all around Boston, but yeah, a couple that lived in that had at least a summer place in Hull by Nantasket,
Yeah,
and still live down that way. So yeah,
great little spot.
yeah.
Great little spot. Love Hall. We go there often. I used to play. My band used to play a gig there at the old.
The Surf Nantasket. No,
Well,
you're
this was
not that old, are you?
no, but I remember that place. But it was the Red Parrot, which was
Oh man, I don't.
it's been bought and taken over by somebody else. But um, yeah,
Oh, there's a photo.
there's that great shot from 2012. Yeah, great day. Pretty legendary with you and Bill and some legendary drum techs in there too. Gary Grimm and Rob Davenport.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gary's out now. He's out with Sting. He's been doing that for a while, about a
Yeah,
year or
that's
so.
right. Yep. Yeah, Gary's great. Boy. Um, so talking about Boston, that's great, that a good segue that your cousin's watching, because um, I know you grew up in Belmont,
Hmm.
Boston boy. And you must have been part of the scene here. You were talking about the place in Nantasket. Um, did you play a lot around town as a up and coming drummer?
When I was the Surf Nantasket, I was pretty young at that point when I was hearing a lot about the Surf Nantasket and never played there. There were bands like the Rock and Ramrods around. I can't remember who else was playing there, but it was a big spot, popular
Mm,
place. But yeah, I started playing around town, in town a lot. When I was about 15, started going into town and playing some bars and coffee houses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So prior to that, just you know, local like frat parties and
Hmm.
and prior to that, just the usual high school dance stuff, stuff that everybody does.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Boston was great. What a it was such a diverse place, to the music, the amount of music and the different kinds of stuff that was floating around was just ridiculous at that point in time. In the mid '60s, that whole coffee house scene, um, the fact that there were all kinds of colleges and universities there was just all kinds of music going on, folky stuff, bluegrass, blues. Uh, you know, I remember seeing Butterfield Blues Band several times with the Unicorn, Richie Havens, Odetta, Charles River
Yeah.
Valley Boys. Boy, when the Jefferson Airplane first album came out, they played there several times, and it's just a little 250-seat coffee house next to where the Jazz Workshop used to be. I
Sure.
don't know
Yeah.
what's there anymore.
Yeah. That's all, that's all,
It's all gone, right?
it's all gone. Yeah. Yeah.
It was
But what a,
such a cool,
yeah, what a
cool
great
scene.
time to be on the scene in town. And I it's a little before me, but even, by the, even I started getting into it in the sort of early to mid '70s. A little bit in Boston, but more in the outskirts. But there was still there was such a scene. I remember as a kid, I'd see ads in the paper, all the clubs, like every night of the week, you could see a live band, and um,
Yeah, there
like
was
a lot
Club
of
40.
places. Yeah,
There were. There's Psychedelic Supermarket, if you remember that one. God, Club 47, Unicorn.
yeah,
Those are the places I was at most. And your old hang, Whirlishes was right up the road
yeah.
from the Unicorn Coffee House. It was right up on the corner. I remember it well. You might have been in there. I don't know.
I might have been just a little before me, but yeah,
Probably. Yeah.
probably. But wow. And so I promise I won't ask who your favorite drummer is, because I know that's we're not going to go there. That's
It's not
no,
possible. I
it's
can't
not
have
possible.
one.
But
And
who were some of the guys, like when you started out, like who were some of the drummers that influenced you? Like what were you listening to kind of in those days?
I don't even know who was playing on the stuff at the time that I was listening to because,
Yeah.
you know, we were listening to Motown stuff. I had no idea who those guys were.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
listened to Four Tops and Temps and all that kind of stuff. And besides, the English bands that were popping at the time, all of them. Uh, uh, but after you find out who's on there, it's Bernard Purdy and the two Motown guys. What is it? Pistol Pete? Who was the other guy? I can't remember.
Um yeah, shoot, shoot,
I'm
shoot.
gonna jog your memory a little.
Yeah, I know. I know. I should know that. I know. Oh, I could look it up. There were like, yeah, a couple of guys that did like the vast majority of all that stuff. Yeah.
But
I'll
that
find
was
out.
early on. But prior to that, I was just hearing, you know, I didn't know who I was listening to. I mean, I was hearing, my brother was older than me. He had all kinds of albums. He had, he belonged to he was in the Navy. He belonged to that Columbia Record Club. I can't,
Yeah.
where you get so many albums per month. And he would, all kinds of stuff down there. Miles Davis, Sketches of Spain, and Dave Brubeck. And, you know, I just was listening to a lot of different stuff. I didn't know who was playing, but later on, I started paying more attention. And I was like
Yeah.
16, and then started hearing Jim Keltner and you know Nigel Olsson and actually DM. I was a big fan of Fairport. I didn't
Hmm.
know he was in it at that point in time, but loved that band. You
Yeah.
know,
That's cool. That's
yeah, just all kinds of stuff, all kinds of different stuff. And then Russ Kunkel, of course, that whole era of
yeah.
section session guys. That was, I just loved that. I love those loose tom fills that Nigel used to do and Russ used to do. And this is sort of a, it seemed sloppy to me at the time. Not sloppy, but it was loose. I
Loose.
loved it, but
Yeah.
it wasn't. It was tighter than,
I know exactly what you
than
mean. I do. It was, yeah, there was, that's the best way to explain it is like it had this looseness to it that just made it feel like relaxed and not sloppy, but sort of just, yeah,
it was just this great feel. The tom fills were
yeah.
cool. Nigel's tom fills used to just slay me. Just,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
all that stuff he used to play on. You know.
yeah, still does.
Uh,
And so you were self-taught pretty much?
Early on, I have several musicians in the family. One of which is my cousin, who's a drummer. Played professionally around Boston. Played legit gigs.
Yeah.
Read. Played. My uncle was a contractor, band leader. They would play anybody who came to town. He would contract out the orchestras behind. Large.
Yeah.
Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra, anybody who came into town, my uncle was usually one of the guys who was contracting a band. And then they had the house band when there were dinner clubs like Blindstrom's. I don't know if you remember that name. There was another
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
Steuben's. That's what it was. Anyway, he was like the Ricky Ricardo of Boston. He was that
Yeah.
guy. He was in this dinner club all the time. But my cousin played all the time and got me started. Just you know, rudimentary stuff. Started reading little march books, uh, and then and that lasted for a few years until I was about 12 and joined this rock and roll band, and then it all went downhill from there.
uh,
I
depends on how
quit
you
the
look at it.
reading. It all stopped. I
Yeah.
just started playing. I was playing Ventures tunes, and it was
Yeah.
all over.
You're like, I don't have to read music. I can, this is what I know. But it's great you had that at least that initial education. That
Absolutely. I wish
yeah,
I did more of it, honestly, even in later years. But I also used to get to sit in, when there's a little charity event and my uncle would play, have a little band there, and he'd let me come play a couple of tunes, little Dixieland stuff with,
yeah.
4-bar drum intro. And, when those guys wanted to rock, they played Dixieland stuff.
Yep. Yep.
That's when they were swinging. They were great. They were great players. But
I'll bet. Yeah.
yeah, it was
Was
fun.
your cousin's name Tony?
Yeah, there's a billion Tonys in my family. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tonys and Marias. Yeah,
Okay. Because that Tony, I think it's the same Tony that I knew later, that had a little music store in Malden.
he did. I wasn't around at that point, but I don't know how long that lasted. He
Yeah.
did have a little music store.
I remember him. I went in there a few times in the early '80s, and I was still living in Boston. Well, I live here now, but I'd moved to LA in the mid '80s. But I remember I worked opened a little shop not far from him, and I guess it was in Malden or it was in Everett. I don't know. But Tony had his place
Malden
was
sounds right.
yeah, his place was I think ABC Music or something like that, and
I was never there. I just remember hearing about it.
yeah, like a
And what?
like a. Sorry, go ahead.
No, like a what?
I was gonna say it was like a small shop. I think he sold like drums and other maybe a few instruments, but definitely had lessons going out of there, and it was more of um, like your typical mom and pop shop where like they had the lesson thing happening and sheet music
Sure.
and
Yeah.
all that. Yeah.
Did they have accordions? They must have had
I
accordions.
think
Come
so.
on.
Yeah, I think so. I think guitar strings
Yeah.
and probably saxophone reeds or something, and
It seems like anybody who started playing music when I was a kid started playing on the accordion, at least in my neighborhood. Uh, it
well, it
was
was
a thing.
definitely yeah, it was a thing for sure. Yeah, yeah.
And if you had a quarter box, oh man,
Oh man, yeah, yeah.
that was the thing.
So
A
did you
stereo.
yeah, Mark Beckett says the great Jack Bruno. I got to agree with you, Mark. Um, so did you at a point, Jack, did you kind of like this is probably like a really dumb question to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. We're friends. You won't think I'm crazy for asking it.
I might.
Did you He might. At some point, did you kind of realize that you could be a lot more successful just like, you know, not like you play with so much soul and so much feel, and like you're not, you don't ever seem to have wanted to go in the route of like being flashy and busy and which is when you're a young drummer, everybody wants to sort of play that way at some point, I would think, but I guess what I'm asking is, when did you kind of realize that you could be Jack Bruno a lot more successful playing the way you play?
I, I I don't know if I was ever flashy. I remember doing drum solos up until, maybe I was 16. That was probably the last time I did a drum solo, maybe 17.
Hmm.
But no, and that's probably just part of my personality. I'm not, I'm introverted. I'm more of an introvert than
Yeah.
than that. So no, I'm not a flashy player at all. Um, so it wasn't a conscious decision. I didn't decide to just. But I am happy not to do drum solos because I suck at it. I don't.
Me too.
I mean, I could manage 4 or 8 bars. That's about it.
Yeah. No, that's no. I had a feeling that was. I mean that knowing your personality, knowing you the way I do, I don't see you that way, and I just wondered if there was like a point where you kind of realized that the guys that were hiring you to play in bands dug the way you play, and like don't mess with the recipe, so to speak. You know what I mean?
No, I don't think it was a conscious thing. I mean, I'd always just played in a band. It wasn't until I moved to LA that it tried to sort of, you know, get gigs as a independent drummer.
Mhm.
So, and I just played the way I played. I didn't, it sort of got refined as time went, and I learned and heard more. It was a great learning time for me in Los Angeles, that's for sure.
Yeah.
At that point in the mid 70s, it was a great time to be there. But yeah, I learned a lot there about not playing. But I was, just because of my skills or the level of my skills or lack thereof, I just was always a meat and potatoes guy. You know,
Man, we all wish we could
and
be.
I'm good. I'm good with it.
Yeah, well, no kidding, man. We all wish we could be meat and potatoes like that. I know I do. I know I do. So and that was one of the questions. I knew you'd lived in LA for a long time. You moved there in the mid '70s, thereabouts.
Yeah, the summer of '76, I moved there from upstate New York. I was living in upstate New York with my wife, who recently got married. Living on this farm. I was flipping burgers in a restaurant and playing bars on weekends. And I had a few friends who lived in LA, former bandmates. And one guy sent me a Sunday LA Times, and he said, "Come on out, you should come out," and we did. We got a van, we packed up the stuff, put 2 dogs in there, and just drove out.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
And how soon, how soon after you got there did things start to happen for you? I mean, did you start playing with some folks pretty quick? And
I knew I started meeting people fairly quickly. Um, One guy I knew and still know was in our band in Boston way back in the day. A guy named Jeff Lavis, great piano player who at the time was playing with Bonnie Raitt, was living in LA.
okay,
And
yeah,
he introduced me to a couple of people. He actually got me a little audition with Van Morrison, which is my first kind of big audition. And that was pretty damn weird anyway. I you know, anyway, I didn't do that gig, or didn't get that gig. But Jeff, introduced me to a couple of guys, and it just, it snowballs. You just start playing and doing a bunch of stuff with, people you meet and meeting more people. Well, you know the drill. You just keep on, meeting people. And hopefully, they'll pass your number along and get you involved in other situations. Just
yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
I believe that's how it still happens.
Yeah, yeah, good old networking, and it certainly helps if you can back it up. You come in and you can show, you can play and being a good guy too. That's an important part of it.
Yeah, well, it's part of the process, and what you do does it doesn't work for everybody. So it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Your style, your time, your feel, whatever your feels. It's not for everyone. But, you
What was the sort of first big gig that you landed when you got to LA that you would consider like a pretty like a turning point type thing?
uh, I had done, been in house bands where we would play behind, you know, these variety type shows, uh, with bigger names, older names, but bigger names, like Chuck Berry and
Mm.
Little Anthony and stuff like that. That was a blast. But actually, so I had played with some, known names, but older cats. But excuse me. Actually, the turning point for me was probably when I got Tina's gig. That was in 1981. That kind of changed my path. It put me
Wow. Yeah.
on a tour path for a few years, and then I stopped. Went back to LA and took my chances back there because Tina's gig seemed like it's like this gig isn't going anywhere. I've been doing this for like 3 years. I'm playing clubs, 6 nights a week or hotel ballrooms, 2 shows a night. Like I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. So anyway,
Wow.
I
Yeah.
bailed, but luckily I got a call back. So anyway, yeah, I headed back to LA and just bouncing around town, just restarting the process, just
Yeah.
trying to find more work.
And you ended up playing with Tina, I mean, over 30 years, right? Was it?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I was fortunate that you know she really liked me, and she liked having familiar faces behind her. There was a rhythm section back there that we played with her for a while. Um, so yeah, I was lucky in that respect. So she liked having a band. She liked having her own drummer, and her own guys, and she liked that. Just having her
yeah.
her band back there. She wasn't
Yeah.
always hiring new people. Every tour, 2 tours. Some people do.
Right.
Uh, so it worked out. It was great. Nice to have a gig that long. I don't know if that happens anymore, but
I
sure
don't
was
think it
nice.
does, Jack. Yeah, I was going to say that is so huge, and I think about that, and I wasn't sure how far back you went with Tina because I know the last time I saw you with her was probably uh, the sort of early mid 2000s or something like that, and I knew you'd had the gig for a long time at that point, um, but
I think the
but
last,
yeah, what was the
yeah, the
last?
last tour we did was 07, 08, or 08, 09. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
That was her last tour, and I was surprised that actually happened. Prior to that, I think we did one in 2000, and that was it. I thought she was done.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. I'm sure I saw that last tour. Um, I feel like we were yucking it up before the show with Gary Grimm, making fun
oh,
of
it's
Kenny
like,
Aronoff. I think we were picking on Kenny Aronoff.
well, Kenny, Joe Cocker was on the bill with Tina for a while, and Kenny was playing drums,
Oh,
at that
okay.
point in time.
Yeah.
Well, I had been playing drums, but I couldn't do both. Um, I would have tried, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
But Kenny was playing. But yeah, Kenny's such a knucklehead. You
Oh,
gotta
he
love
is.
that guy. Yeah, he's
He's a
really fun.
blast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, but to your point, I don't think any artist, at the level that Tina, or really not even at the level she's at, but certainly at that level, it's rare that they would keep the same core, musicians that long. And I think it's great. I think it's fantastic that it to me, it makes sense, but often you'll have an MD, as you know, it's kind of the MD will come in and want to have his favorite bass player or drummer and
Absolutely.
those kinds of
Yeah, yeah.
things.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
we didn't really, with Tina, we didn't really have an MD per se for the for years.
Wow.
She'd bring tunes in and we'd work them out, and she was kind of the MD. Actually, she had, she knew exactly what she wanted to do with it, and it usually incorporated her dancing stuff. I mean, it was very
Hmm.
important that she'd get all that worked into the song arrangement. So those two went together. It wasn't until later on that we actually had uh, one of our keyboard players was the official MD. But prior to that, no. We had a guitar player who started the gig when I did, a guy named James Ralston, and who was sort of, I guess you could kind of call him an MD. I think he was more of an interpreter for Tina, because she didn't speak in musical terms. She just, she would
Yeah.
try and get her ideas across, and usually Jim would understand, what she was,
Yeah.
trying to accomplish, and would
Yeah.
tell us, So,
Oh, that's cool.
uh, yeah, yeah. So anyway, Tina
Did
was the
she
MD.
did she offer like input to you as the drummer, like in terms of like her dance? Um,
Absolutely, yes.
yeah, yeah.
Dance thing was huge to her, maybe more important than the singing. But sorry, somebody, I'm getting phone ringing in my earphones.
Oh,
Uh, yes, there were holdover fills from Ike and Tina days that she wanted to hear when they were doing certain dance steps. So she would ask me to do these rolls around the toms, and
yeah.
in you know at certain points of tunes. Not just rolls around the toms, but fills. She always wanted a flam too. That real old school R&B
Yeah.
thing where you do a flam at the top of the verse and bring it down. It's like she wanted those dynamics, and it worked in some tunes, but not in other tunes. It's like, I can't flam there. You want to flam at the top of the verse. What's love got to do with that? I
It
don't think
sounds
it's gonna work. It's
yeah, it
gonna be
sound,
one of those tight, funky R&B tunes where it's like pop.
yeah, yeah,
Bringing it down, and it's just great and dynamic. But yeah,
yeah.
she had that thing, and certainly feels around her dance step. Yeah,
I remember the band being really dynamic and
and
like it.
fast.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, and at times you were really slamming too, right? I mean, there were like tunes where you were like, it wasn't like you were just kind of sitting back a lot of the time and just playing, right? I mean, I feel like there were times when you were really
No,
hitting.
we played hard. I played hard all the time, and
Yeah,
and it was fast all the time. Usually,
yeah.
sometimes it was never fast enough, but I'd reach maximum velocity a couple of times. It's like, I don't think I could play this any faster. Damn it! Uh,
Wow. That's funny, man. That she must be just a ball of energy. Like, that's kind of the antithesis of typically what us drummers deal with the singer kind of going, it's too fast, slow down. I can't
that's
sing
right.
it, but she's like faster. Yeah, that's great.
It was
Yeah,
always faster. It was rarely slower, but
yeah,
it was always faster. And most nights, somewhere in the middle of the show, you get the sign to pick it up. You know,
yeah,
so
yeah,
that's old school show tempos. Everything's quicker.
yeah, yeah,
Even if it messes with the groove, it didn't matter. Just the way it was. You listen to old James Brown live shows, it's like, holy shit, the groove's gone. But it was just a
yeah.
million miles an hour. All those great funky ass grooves they used to do, it's like gone. But show tempo. They
Show
try
tempo.
to
Yeah,
create that excitement with speed, but it
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
work for me. But that was the gig, so I did
that,
it.
yeah. That's what she wanted. She was, yeah, made her
Yeah,
comfortable.
exactly.
Yeah. So, and when did you start playing with Joe? And because that was a pretty steady, it seemed like when you weren't on tour with Tina for a number of years, like you were on tour the next year with Joe, or, it seemed like you had those
Yeah, the
two.
timing was brilliant. I started playing with Joe in 1992, and there were a couple of guys in Joe's band that had played in Tina's band. So That's kind of how I kind of drifted over to Joe,
I see.
fortunately. And they had the same manager. So I don't think it was planned that way, certainly not for me. But uh, yeah, it seemed like there was never a conflict. There were a couple of small ones that got worked out, but no. Yeah, if Tina was in, you know, the way it worked out, Joe was going out, and it was
Yeah.
great. So there was another guy that, you know, liked having his own people back there, familiar faces. It was just a cool gig that way,
Yeah.
besides the other ways. But, you know, he just liked having his band, you know.
Yeah.
That was cool. Although it did change through the years, but so does Tina's for that matter.
Yeah. And that was, I mean, I would look at that as kind of a departure from Tina's gig in terms of Joe's style, you know, Joe Cocker's music, and that was really like, not that Tina wasn't all pocket because it had to be pocket, but I just think of Joe's gig as like you were really just playing this
Yeah,
really, yeah,
you
just
got to lay it down more. I got to lay
yeah,
it down more. I wasn't worried about, you know, things being too fast or too slow. I mean, the tempos were, you know, once you locked stuff in with
yeah,
Joe, he was fine. He liked it. You know, you had some leeway, but he didn't like it. I don't want to say he didn't like it, but he did things the same. You know, the arrangements never changed, and once the set list was locked in, that usually
yeah,
didn't change. You might change
yeah,
a tune or two, but you know, it stayed the same, and it was. Uh, I wish there were more substitutions because he had so many cool tunes, you
oh,
know,
I
that
know,
I just really wanted to play, but he just wasn't going to do it. You know, he had the same, I don't know, 5, 6 tunes that he kind of had to do.
right,
You know, longtime favorites, and then some tunes from his latest release, and they narrowed down those newer tunes and get a set list, and it would stay there. That would be the set list, you know. But
for the whole tour,
it,
or
it was a
basically, yeah,
pretty much the whole tour, but it was always a blast to play. I love playing his old tunes. Always love playing his old
oh
tunes.
yeah,
So
yeah, man, you know, and they're timeless, you know, they really are. Like you can listen to those songs, you know, 50 years later, and they're just
well,
so
all
great.
those old Leon Russell arrangement tunes, you know, from
Yeah,
Mad Dogs. I mean, those tunes are just killer. Those arrangements are killer.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, yeah, fun stuff to do.
yeah.
Um,
And with the Joe Cocker stuff, were you responsible for like counting the tunes off,
hmm,
pretty much?
yeah, I had a metronome. I you know, for tempos, and would
Yeah,
just count them off. We didn't use the metronome or not throughout the whole tune. There were a couple of times when we had to use tracks, accompanying tracks. It might be a percussion thing or some strings that we didn't have, or something that the guy, keyboard player, and oftentimes there were two keyboard players, but just couldn't cover.
yeah, yeah,
You know, so there would be, we did a U2 song. It's called The One. I can't remember. Anyway, there's a couple of times we had those kind of hip hoppy loops going on in the background that you had to play along with, stuff like that. But for the most
yeah,
part, it was all real. You know, everybody was
yeah.
playing in real time,
Beautiful.
and
Yeah,
Joe never, you know, never said anything about, never complained really about anything, you know, tempos or anything like that. Once in a great while, he'd say, you know, at the end of the show, hey Jack, was that a little quick? You know, that song, or that would be it. You know, I just, you know, checked the metronome. You know, maybe I just felt it a little different tonight. I don't know. Yeah, you know, he was pretty sensitive to it. So usually
yeah,
singers
yeah,
are, you know, they feel it when they're phrasing. So you know, I would just assume he was right. Yeah, it probably was, if you're saying so.
yeah,
Another thing I learned about Joe was he was very, very pretty quiet guy. And if he did say something, to you about whatever, he would probably been thinking about it for a while. So
Mhm.
pay attention.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I did, but he never said squat. Well, one time at the end of Cry Me a River, it was this kind of this outro, just this great quick shuffle outro. And when we got into the outro, the top of the outro, instead of playing a straight up shuffle, just four on the floor on the kick drum, I started playing this Fat Tire shuffle, boom, bap, bap, bap,
Yeah.
and I thought it was cool, So, but like, and I think I had recently discovered Fat Tire shuffles at that point in time. I was like, wow, this is great. Fat Tire shuffle is going to work. And at the end of later in the night, he said, Jack, what was that gay beat you played at the end of Cry?
Jeez.
All right, I got the message.
Oh
And
man.
he was a blues guy. He loved the rootsy stuff, but
Yeah, yeah.
uh, not in that particular place with that particular song. All right, I won't be doing that one again.
But I could see why you'd be the perfect drummer for him, because when you look at, like you said, all those old tunes, Leon Russell arranged tunes with Jim Gordon or Gordon and Keltner or all the great
Those
drummers he's had.
guys.
Yeah, but you're in that same school, you know what I mean? You're in that same, you're like the next generation after them, but it's like you guys all share the same brain when it comes to how you approach playing for the song, and that's what I and everybody watching loves about you is you it's about the music, it's about the song for you, and that's
Yeah,
the
well, I try to make it that way. I mean, it doesn't always work out, for the best. But yeah, that's what I aim to do. But but somebody like Keltner and Jim Gordon, the way they kind of weave it and out of stuff, it's like, wow, I'm just pretty straight ahead with my stuff, and I'm way more simple. And I think that's partly why probably most of the reason why it worked well for just singers, because I'm out of the way. You got a backbeat, it feels
yeah,
right. I'm not stepping on anybody's stuff, so it worked in that sense.
yeah. Well, I'm not surprised by your humility, but uh,
Well, no,
yeah,
it's true. It's just I'm not. It's a simple approach. I'm just trying to dig a hole and make a groove and stay there.
yeah, yeah.
Hang on, hold steady. And don't play too many groove interrupter fills.
Yes, I love that.
I do too. I heard
I
that.
love
So
it.
don't those groove interrupters? Yeah, don't do those.
I
All
never
right.
heard that. All right, I'm gonna borrow that from you. Groove interrupters. Yeah, I got to remember that. And I was gonna say one of the other times I remember seeing you. It might have just been like for one summer you did this, but you came through town with Peter Frampton one summer,
Did you
and
see that?
I did. I came out to see you,
Wow.
and I'll just say this too for everybody watching. And I hope this doesn't get you in trouble, but
You
um,
might.
I might. But
I don't care.
whenever you played in Boston, which is where you have a huge family still, you are always so generous with like tickets. I'd say, Jack, listen, if you got to, because I would talk to other drummers and they'd say, well, I got relatives here in Boston, so I don't know if I can get tickets. And I'm like, don't worry about it. But you would always say, Johnny D, I got you, man. Don't worry. And I think that night at Frampton, if I'm not mistaken, it was at Great Woods. I know that for sure. And I think I met a lot of your family. You had a lot of family that night, and you were
I can't
right about it.
remember that particular gig at Great Woods. He was opening for Journey, so
Oh,
I
okay.
don't remember that one. And it was just a really short summer tour for me. Um, but yeah, my family would be at fortunately the especially with Cocker and Tina, the ticket thing was everybody got 4 tickets. Whoever wasn't using their tickets in the band, you could say, "Hey, if you're not using yours, can I get them?"
Yeah.
So if I'd come to some place like Boston, and I'd end up with, I need 17 tickets.
I need some volunteers. Yeah.
fortunately, it worked out. They didn't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
as many
That,
relatives as I did in Boston. But yeah, of course,
well,
you had to come. At least I had to offer, and you came whether you wanted to see it or not. That was nice.
of course I did. Of course, and I always wanted to see you, and it was a thrill to hear you play. And I remember the Frampton gig. We were sitting having dinner and catering, and you introduced me to the late great Bob Mayo,
Oh
who
man,
was at our table.
talented boy.
Yeah, yeah, I'd met him briefly when he was with Hall and Oates, like many years before. He didn't remember, but we sat and we chatted for a long time, and he was so nice. And we talked about the original drummer with Frampton, John Siomos, and
That was Peter's favorite. Him
yeah,
and Chad Cromwell. Those were
yeah,
his guys, as far as I know. He was pretty picky about drummers. Uh,
very, yeah, yep.
he had a lot uh, through the years, that just kind of went by the wayside, including me. So, uh,
Well, he seemed to just yeah, he seemed to want to try different guys because I know of several drummers that had the chair at one time or another, and I think you're right. He just liked the fact that he lived in Nashville and there were a lot of great drummers in town, and he could, you know,
yeah, he always had John Regan and Bob Mayo. He always had those. The drummers changed a lot through the years,
yeah,
but those two guys were always there. And I had no beyond, Frampton Comes Alive. I really wasn't. I hate to admit, I really wasn't familiar with his history. Humble Pie stuff, and what a great rock and guitar player he was. It wasn't until I started playing his tunes that I realized, you
yeah,
know, how great he was, as a player. But I just remember those tunes, that's Frampton come. Some of them, the most popular ones, it's like,
yeah.
yeah, they're okay. Yeah. But man, he could rock.
He could rock, yeah. And how I know that was a while ago, but how did that come about? Like, did he, like did he call you? Had he seen you play
No,
with
I,
Joe
I,
or
I'm not exactly sure how my name got passed. But I got a call from his manager here in Nashville, asking if I wanted to come and do an audition. And I was in between stuff. I wasn't doing anything, as I recall, and I can't remember what year that was actually. But
Yeah,
I
I
said,
don't know
yeah, of
either.
course. And I went and played a few tunes, 3 or 4 tunes. Jim Hanley was there. Jim Hanley,
Yeah, sure,
and
yep.
he's the only guy I knew at that point. But yeah, I did an audition. And then I didn't hear from him. I knew the tour was going to start. It was getting really close, and I thought, wow, I I don't know if I got this gig, or I don't know what's going on here. So, um, because they had auditioned several people, and maybe they just or he couldn't decide. I'm not sure, but seemed like it was real last minute. I got on the phone and said, her name was Lisa. I said, so no, what's happening? I thought, it seemed like you wanted me to do this thing, but I haven't heard, from anybody. And she said, oh no, we want you to do it. It's like, all right, well, thanks for letting me know.
Sorry, my ESP isn't working well today. Oh, that's funny. And did you have like a week to how long did you have to rehearse? Was there some
Oh
time to
boy, I don't remember, honestly.
he
Um,
seems like he would want to rehearse from what I know of him that he's pretty meticulous, but I could have that wrong.
we rehearsed. I can't remember how long it was. I'm sure there was a lot of homework involved for me, shedding those tunes, and which is usually the case. Learn tunes on my own before I go into a rehearsal. Um, but just the way it seems like it's always been, you don't have that sort of
Yeah.
luxury of going in cold with anybody.
No, no,
Just
yeah.
like, hey, let's listen to this tune. Yeah, let's play this one. And kind of learn it with everybody else.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
that doesn't happen, I don't think, at all anymore, does it? I'm
I
always
I
learning tunes before the fact.
yeah, I wouldn't think so. I think with the cost of having to get a rehearsal space, all the things related that we know about. They'd want you to come in, know the tunes, bang it out in a day or two, you know.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Um, and with Peter's gig, you know, I would think that music that it's a little more, you know, you're playing maybe a little bit more in that than you might with Joe, and right. I mean, it's more
Absolutely.
fills, little
It was
busier.
different for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I was having to play a little more stuff. I was having to play a couple of things that didn't feel natural to me that I had to work on. You know, uh, it wasn't in my, you know, comfort, my big comfort zone, you know,
Hmm.
so I had to work at it for sure. Um, you know, there are a couple of things that he wanted to hear, you know, offbeat hi-hats and, you know, that I had to practice to
Yeah.
make work, you know. So, uh, but you know, it worked out, you know, at least for the summer. I certainly wasn't one of his favorites, but you know, I was at least amongst a long list of guys who, you know, didn't last for very long. So,
I,
but
I, I, yeah.
I ended up doing a few one-offs after that tour, but you know, and then he went on to do. Well, I started doing other stuff. I
Yeah.
can't remember who Joe or whatever.
Yeah. I thought, you know, and my recollection was you brought your groove to it. That, you know, I'd seen many other drummers with him. I don't know if I ever saw Chad, but um, a great drummer that I think he's used quite a lot in the last however many years. You might know Dan Wojciechowski.
I
Um,
don't know him, and but I've seen like song videos of him playing. Yes,
yeah, really good
he
drummer.
was great.
Yeah,
And there's a live DVD, sorry, of Peter in I want to say it's Detroit, which is something they gave me to learn tunes with, and Chad was playing, and it was just
yes, yeah,
slamming. I think
yeah,
he just needed me to play more, and you know, sometimes playing more for me just
yeah. That's kind of
I
not. Yeah,
you
I know
know,
what you mean. Yeah,
I'm
that's
not a play more kind of guy sometimes, you know.
yeah.
So it's got to
It's funny.
feel
I know to have the band leader kind of saying, you know, the opposite of probably what a lot of people would say, which is play more, you know, play more
yeah,
fills, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Do I have
So,
to? Don't
and
make me.
yeah, yeah. And so just kind of bringing it up to more recent in the last probably the last couple of years, you've been playing with Jim Messina of Loggins and
Well,
Messina.
no, not even a couple of years. Actually, I went out with him uh, two times. I did two runs with him, a 6 gig run, and just more recently, in early November, we did 2 weeks. We did 10 shows. So just a couple of times. But there's more
Yeah,
in store coming up next year, starting in February. So
great.
he does these 2 week runs. He wants to do about 8 or 10 shows a month. Not every month. He's talking about doing 80 shows next year. So
Wow.
that's plenty for me. I'm
Yeah.
okay with 2 week runs. I'm good with that. I don't need to do, you know, not that I turn one down, but I don't need to do, you know, months long tours, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but it doesn't seem like there's many of those floating around these days. There's different factors, you know, age
Yeah.
being one, and just you know, just the lack of a lot of tours, you know.
Yeah. I was going to say the
It was
tour
just the way the
business.
music business changed, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I know. It's a different, I mean, from your perspective as a player, but even just me as a guy that used to go to a lot of shows all the time to see guys like you, it really you saw the progression of it really kind of I don't want to say shrinking, but it you know changing, you know,
Well, it did change, and you know, when I was, you know, getting some work, there were more, you know, singers out front, you know, somebody like Joe or Tina or other people, but and then you could started shifting to bands, you know, more bands, and it's kind of it just kind of seems like it stayed that way for the most part. But it's nice to see some sort of legacy band still out there playing and just rocking, you
mm,
know, just
yeah,
killing
yeah,
it. You know, it's great. Uh,
that is, yeah, I know, and I feel like those legacy bands have proven that they can stand, you know, they're gonna always be there, you know,
there's a reason. Yeah, man.
yeah, Yeah. I mean, and even, my heroes, the Rolling Stones, without Charlie, they've kind of, to me, they've defied the odds by continuing, you know, without Charlie, with Steve Jordan, and people are still going
That
out to
was
see them.
that
And
was a leap, but
yeah,
they couldn't
yeah,
have picked a more perfect guy for the gig.
exactly. Other than me and you were busy.
Yeah, of course, that goes without saying. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, he was the perfect guy, is the perfect guy, Steve Jordan.
Yeah, and you could just tell right from the what was the fabulous, was it the Fabulous Winos? I can't remember Keith Richards'
Expensive
band.
winos.
The Expensive Winos.
Expensive
Yeah,
winos,
that
yeah.
stuff just slayed me. That slop was
Oh, I
so
know.
beautiful.
Yeah. I know. I
And
know.
and Steve was just right in there with that stuff. It was so
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. And I'm going to just read a couple of comments. Roy Brown said, "Saw you with Delbert. It was great." Richie Burns is asking if you're coming to Europe in the future.
I wish.
Yeah. Uh,
I miss it.
lots of, yeah. Kelly and I went to Italy. I think I told you that back. We were there in October for a week, and we hadn't been to Europe in, gosh, since 2018, I think, and hadn't been to London since 2019. We were there a week and a half ago, and just to your point, it's just felt so good to be back over there, and just that the whole feeling that you get when you're in those places.
Yeah, it is great. I love being there.
Yeah.
I mean, it just got to a point where if we were touring over there, it just became uh, you know, the highlight was oh, we get to go to this restaurant over here in whatever city we're in. Oh, remember that? We're going back. It
Yeah.
became it was a tour of restaurants. With some gigs involved.
It's so funny how many of you guys, that becomes a thing, when you're, yeah, oh, we're going back to Barcelona. We're gonna go back to that place. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
no, I in a much smaller scale, I got that way with traveling myself, when
you
whether
travel a lot. You did a lot of dinners, I'm
I did.
sure.
I did a lot of
Yeah.
dinners in my old job, and I would know, yeah, I'm going to Seattle, I'm going to this place, I'm going to be, in San Francisco, I'm going to this place, and yeah.
Did you do more international stuff? Besides maybe the music mess in Frankfurt, did you go over and do? Excuse me. I know you did some clinic tours with like Steve Gadd and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But did you go over there just besides that? Did you have to go over there and do biz for Zildjian?
I did a
Uh,
couple of things outside. The Steve Gadd thing covered, gosh, I think 10 countries over like 3 weeks um, during the fall of 2010. So we hit a lot of spots. But I'd go to London a few times a year for regular business. Zildjian has an office there, and
it was the
that
first
office.
place that got signed to Zildjian was in London
Oh,
with
it
Colin.
was.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, with Colin Schofield. Wow,
Yeah,
I didn't realize. I thought it was out in L.A.
no, it
Wow.
was in London. Sorry.
That's so cool. No, so I would go there because that office reported into me, so I'd be out there a lot in LA, of course, every month or couple of months I'd be out in LA, but go to Paris to do events, go to Italy, lousy places where the food and wine's terrible. I'd find
Yeah,
myself having
I
to.
know you wanted to get back home and get some fried chicken somewhere, and meatloaf. Not that that's a bad thing.
No, no,
I
it's
like
not.
I like meatloaf and fried chicken, but they don't have it in Italy.
They don't have
Hey,
it. No,
hey,
no.
nice meatballs.
That's right. You won't find a Kentucky Fried Chicken in Italy. I promise you.
Although you
Oh,
see
too
them,
funny.
you started seeing the fast food thing in Paris. It was kind of disappointing when they started popping up years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, not this. And McDonald's and KFC and all that stuff started showing up. And I think as a result, Parisians got fatter in general.
They
Just
started
like
eating that. Yeah.
Americans.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that funny? I know. Oh, that's too funny. Well, and so besides the work that you're doing with Jim Messina, you're still keeping busy around town, around Nashville,
Not so
playing
much.
gigs.
I mean, a little bit when I get a call to play. I played actually Delbert's. songwriting partner, or the guy who wrote a bunch of tunes for Delbert. Gary Nicholson has this persona, this playing persona named Whitey Johnson, and I'm not the regular guy, but I've done several gigs with him, which are a lot of fun. It's a lot of Delbert-like stuff,
Yeah.
which I love. But we were supposed to do one. Geez, it was just a few weeks ago in a little town close to here called Leapers Fork. Great little place, got a cool club there. And but Gary got sick, and Rick Vito. I don't know if you're familiar with Rick as a guitar player.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, he lives in Leapers Fork, so it ended up being a Rick Vito evening, which was great. Rick Vito's just wonderful.
Great guitar player.
Oh man,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah.
a really different cat, and the slide playing. It's just stellar, and
Yeah.
tunes were fun to play. But yeah, some stuff, everything just kind of stopped, during COVID, like it did for everybody. But and I'm really, not that I did a lot of stuff here. I did some. It seemed like I was always, you know, after a tour, I'd come here, and I really didn't want to do anything right away. I was just kind of, my kids were younger. I was trying to spend time with my family because I was gone so much. And but I do some stuff. But the Messina thing was, it came by just in time. So
Hmm.
because Delbert, who I absolutely love and loved from before I got the chance to work with him, retired. He's like
Oh,
79 when the pandemic started, and he sold a bus and he was done with the road stuff, and he's happy. He
I
still
didn't. I
records.
didn't. I didn't realize that he retired from touring. But I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, he never really toured. He just, it was a Nashville weekend thing. It's very common here. You go out you leave town on a Thursday night, like you often midnight, at least for Delbert and with a lot of people. You hop on the bus, you go to wherever, you do a gig on Friday, do another one on Saturday, and you're coming home on Sunday. It happens. You see it a lot. In fact, when you're coming home, on an interstate, you'll see, the buses are coming in like fishing boats coming back
Oh,
to
that's
the
so.
harbor.
That's too
A lot of
funny.
them with trailers in the back, a lot of country buses. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was common. He never really toured, but he stopped doing that, and he's happy. Although we got a cruise that we used to do every year, that Delbert ended up selling, but uh, I think he was obligated to do one more, and COVID got in the way. But we're going to do it this January,
Oh, great.
one more time, one more
Yeah.
week out on a boat, which will be fun. Hopefully, everybody will stay healthy,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, because boats are like, floating incubators. Stuff
Yeah.
travels around fast. Like being on a tour bus. When somebody gets sick, you're gonna get sick.
I know. I know. I know. Well, hopefully they seem like they've as best they can figured that out now. With boats and
Oh, they're pretty cautious.
yeah.
I just, it's kind of up to the individual now. I mean, they
Hmm.
can do, you know, they do as much as possible, including this particular cruise. They need a negative COVID test 3 days, taken 3 days before the ship leaves, but which is good. I mean, I guess it helps, but you can certainly pick up COVID inside of a couple of days, or excuse me, before the cruise. But people just need to be. Hopefully, they'll be smart about it. If they start feeling sick on the boat, just kind of at least put on a mask if you're gonna
Yeah.
start roaming around in public places with everybody,
Exactly.
because you're in close quarters. Hopefully, we'll see. I know I have lots of friends who've been out on cruises with no issues so far. But it's winter now, or coming into it, and more people are inside. And supposedly, that's the time when things tick up. At least they have
Yeah.
in like New York City. So we'll see.
We'll see. Yep. Fingers
It's a
crossed. But
crapshoot.
yeah. Well, as we wrap things up, I want to read one quick question from Anthony Cascina, who watches all the time. So I really want to make sure we get to Anthony's question because he's a regular listener, viewer. He said, just asking you, Jack, what are you focused on these days to improve your playing? Improve your playing.
Um, during the course of COVID, I started practicing a little bit more, which is something I never did. You know, but just getting on a pad and going through some books.
Great. Yeah.
That just trying to get my hands working a little bit better. And part of that was the reason I did it was because I was playing so little, and I'm not getting any younger, and I was just feeling stiff and slow, and I had to get my hands moving more often. I mean, I used to play all the time, and then I wasn't playing at all. It's like, wow, this
Hmm.
this doesn't feel right. I need to move these some more. But there was that, and what I do to improve my playing mostly is checking out a video on YouTube of people playing things, and trying to learn grooves that I wasn't capable of playing, some Latin stuff or things like that. Like I
Great.
stumbled across this Carlos Vega
Oh, man.
video, who's the guy's like butter, right? But playing some Latin stuff, it's like, holy shit, I love Latin stuff, but it's out of my wheelhouse. Those offbeat kick drum things. It's not 1 and 3 or whatever. You know, it's one boo boo doo boo.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
wacky grooves, and so practicing that kind of stuff, trying to get more independence and coordination, playing those kind of grooves. I'd love to be able to play them more fluently. I can fake my way through some stuff, but it doesn't last for long. You know, I just kind of have to stay there. It's like if I start messing around with it, it's like falling off a bike.
Yeah.
I
But that's
get
great.
bucked off.
But I mean, that's what you gotta try stuff that you're not comfortable playing, and that's how you
Well,
get
that's
better.
what
And
we
yeah,
always did. I mean,
sure.
you listen to stuff and try to play it. From the
Yeah,
get go. That's
exactly.
what most of us did. So if not all, putting records on, moving the needle over.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Talking about that
now I can
last week.
slow. Now I can slow like YouTube videos down. Somebody hit me to, yeah, man. There's this little icon, and you can go there and play it like it, you know, half the speed. I'm going, you're kidding, and you can hear it and see people move. It's like, this is brilliant.
It's great. I know. But I just before we wrap it up, I had Chris Parker on last week, and I said exactly what you just said, Jack, which was like listening to the old stuff records that he was on, and like lifting the needle up and playing it again. Like, okay, let me hear that part, and you don't want to scratch the record, so you carefully lift it and move it,
That's
and
right.
and there it
What
is,
is that?
and then
What did he do? I
I gotta
can't
hear it
tell.
again. Yeah, I know. It's
But it
too
also
fun.
helps when you get the visual thing too. So,
Oh
earlier
yeah,
on, we could only listen, or if we saw somebody live, we could, can you play that again? But uh, now you can see it happen, and it's just so great. And one of my favorites was I stumbled across another one, Steve Gadd teaching a class on his Mozambique beat, and he just broke it down in it was so
yeah.
cool because when you hear him play it at full speed, it's like, oh fuck, I can't play that,
Never ever.
you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But and then he breaks it down, and you go, that's it, that's the whole thing. I mean, I had to work on the independence of it, but it wasn't like this. It sounds, and a lot of them do sound more complex than they
Yeah.
really are. Some of them are actually complex, but some of them are like when they break them down like that, it's like, oh man, okay, I can
Yeah,
get this.
I know what you mean too. The sticking when he breaks it down, it he makes it sound much more simple, but then when he's playing two sticks in each hand and it's the accents and like you say the independence, he's it's I still can't. I could never play it the way he plays it. I mean, in a million
Well,
years.
no, it's his feel, but it's all about the accents on certain beats. It's like when you
Yeah,
hear it just straight ahead, it's just this vanilla generic thing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
then when you start hearing these things pop out at you, it's like, oh man, like New Orleans grooves. It's like a lot of,
Oh, yeah,
or Tower of Power stuff. It's like it's paradiddles. It's like, but
right.
they got
Yeah,
all these accents and the kicks, and it's so cool.
yeah.
Anyway, that's what I've been doing. I've been listening to people slowing videos down and stealing shit, Anthony. That's basically what I've been doing all my life.
Hey, I got to tell you, man, two really great drummers commenting right now. Eddie Taduri says, forget about practicing making meatballs, which will serve you better in your old age. You can't eat a paradiddle.
Eddie used to live here, and he used to have guys over, and he'd make nice sauce, and he made meatballs. It was
Yeah.
great, Hank.
And
Uh,
he's going to be on this Friday with me. Yeah.
I'll have to put that on my calendar. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love Eddie, and it
Me
was.
too.
I'd see him here. He moved years ago, but I'd see him from time to time when I get out to the West Coast. But yeah, always great to see Eddie, and he makes a fine meatball. I got to say, and a nice sauce. Yeah,
Yeah.
and at that point in time, there were maybe about, I don't know, 6 Italians in Nashville. So there weren't that many. We had to keep it together.
Yeah. Plenty of meatballs for you
You
guys.
couldn't get some nice sauce in Nashville. It just didn't happen. And,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's too great. And Ash Sohn, the great Ash Sohn, is also
oh
watching these,
man,
and
that
he's.
guy.
Oh, I know. I know.
Fuck, man.
I know.
I don't know. What a groove. I watch his videos. He's one of those guys I just watch on YouTube. What
Well,
a
that's
feel. What a thing.
he'll be happy to
Yeah.
hear that. That's yeah. Well, you and him and Eddie. Like that's you guys are all the top of the mountain when it comes to that stuff. So, Jack, it's been
I'm
a
honored.
blast.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so
Thanks.
much for being here today.
It's good to see you. I hope to see you in person sometime
I,
relatively soon. I do get up
yeah.
to Boston occasionally, but we've been threatening to have an adult beverage for a while, but it never happens. But I'm due. We're overdue.
We're
And a
overdue.
couple of
And
adult beverages and
if
some
you
meatballs.
and some meatballs, if you find your way this way in the spring as you're thinking you might, that would be so fun. And yeah.
And I want to come to your drum room and play all of your drums, every single set. I'm going to stay over for a few days and I'm going to play them all.
I would love that. Kelly would love it. By the way, I spoke with my sister-in-law Tracy first today, who was so happy. She says hello to you when I
Hello,
told her you were gonna.
Tracy.
Yeah, and Kelly, of course. We love you like mad. So
I love you back. Thank you. Yeah, what a long, great relationship. I'm happy to have old friends.
yeah, me too. I'm so honored. Well, stay with me for 1 minute if you would, Jack, and we'll end this stream and say goodbye. But I want to thank everybody for watching. Big hand for Jack Bruno. Yeah. Yep.